Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about why Imran Khan is facing strong opposition in Pakistan right now and why the country's army is worried about it. We also talk about a new twist in the TRP scam case being investigated against TV channels. But first, we talk about Punjab. On Tuesday, the Punjab Assembly passed 4 state bills that counter the central government's contentious farm laws that have faced opposition from farmers in the country, especially those in Punjab and Haryana. These new bills passed in the state aim to negate the effects of the central laws. In this segment, we talk to Aman Singh Chhina, who reports on politics in Punjab for the Indian Express, about these new bills, what makes them different, and how they aim to help the farmers in the state. But before we do that, Aman first tells us about the farmers' protests happening in the state right now and how the controversy around this issue first began.
What has brought about this entire controversy is the fact that in June this year, the centre passed 3 ordinances. The cabinet passed 3 ordinances which were aimed at what the centre is saying, reforming the agriculture sector and trying to ensure that the income of the farmers is doubled in the near future.
Now, even though this is what the centre claimed these ordinances were meant to do, when the farmer community came to know about it, they slowly started protesting against them. Majority of these protests took place in Punjab and Haryana. Aman explains that the farmers feared that these ordinances were actually trying to get rid of the minimum support price that they get for paddy and wheat.
And that the farmers would now be left at the mercy of the corporate houses, who would now be free to purchase the produce from them at whatever cost they want, and it will not be mandatory for them to restrict their purchase to the minimum support price, which is given by the government. So, therefore, the farmers feared that they would lose out on a substantial amount of money because these are the 2 key crops from which they earn the most. The other crops like cotton or maize, they do not fetch as much return as these 2 crops.
The farmers kept protesting throughout August and September, demanding that these ordinances be repealed.
However, the government in the centre, they did not do so and they went forth. And in the parliamentary session, which was held in the monsoon session, these ordinances were presented in the House as bills in the parliament and they were passed. And they received the assent of the president and they are now acts. And therefore, they are binding laws.
While being passed in the Rajya Sabha, unprecedented scenes of chaos, confusion, and ruckus had taken place. In a previous episode, we had discussed how copies of the bills were torn, microphones on the chairman's table were broken, a copy of the rule book was flung at the presiding officer, and the audio feed of the Rajya Sabha was temporarily cut off. After the laws were passed, Aman says that the farmer protests further intensified.
With the result that the farmers' unions in Punjab swung into action. They mobilized the farmers, they mobilized the members of their unions, they blocked traffic on the highways. And as of now, even as we speak, the farmers are squatting on railway tracks in Punjab, disrupting the total freight traffic of the railways. They are squatting on all toll plazas on all main highways in the state. No toll is being collected, leading to a huge loss to the toll companies and to the National Highways Authority of India. The freight corridor, as I said, in the railways has been affected to the extent that the thermal plants in Punjab are now running short of coal because there has been no supply of coal for the past several days as the rakes are held up further beyond in Haryana. And there's a fear that there would be a power shutdown in Punjab.
Now, it is against this background that the government of Punjab was forced to bring out 4 bills of their own in order to negate the effects of the centre's legislations. For this purpose, a special session of the Vidhan Sabha had been called by the Punjab cabinet, and then on Tuesday, these 4 bills were presented before the House.
And all the political parties, with the exception of BJP, whose 2 MLAs were absent from the House, all other political parties, the Shiromani Akali Dal, the Aam Aadmi Party, and there's a third opposition party called the Lok Insaf Party, all of them united with the Congress and unanimously passed these 3 bills, which are supposed to negate the negative effects of the center's legislations.
Now, like mentioned earlier, the farmers fear that they will no longer get minimum support price for paddy and wheat, and that they would be at the mercy of private corporations. And Manaman says that these are the problems that the new bills address. He now talks about the bills individually.
One is the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services, Special Provisions and Punjab Amendment Bill 2020. Now, this bill seeks to amend certain sections of the center's legislation. So, certain new sections have been added in the center's legislation by the Punjab government in this bill, and it provides for an imprisonment of 3 years in case anybody compels a farmer to sell agriculture produce below MSP. So this was one of the key demands of the farmers. The other is that no sale or purchase of wheat or paddy under a farming agreement shall be allowed below MSP. So here, protection of MSP, which was being demanded by the farmers and which was absent in the center's legislations, that has been provided by the Punjab bills.
The other bill is called the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion Facilitation Specials Provisions and Punjab Amendment Bill 2020.
Again, this is an amendment of the Centers Act. And here there is again a provision of imprisonment of 3 years in case anybody harasses or compels a farmer to sell his agriculture produce below MSP. And this has been ensured by inserting new sections. The amendment also seeks to protect the interest of farmers, farm laborers, and those engaged in ancillary and incidental activities relating to production, sale, marketing of agriculture produce. And this amendment also ensures that no sale or purchase of wheat or paddy shall be valid unless the price paid for it is equal or greater to the MSP. And it also restores the primacy of the Agriculture Produce Market Committee Act over the central legislations. Now, this with the Agriculture Produce Market Committee Act or the APMC Act in Punjab, this is also a bone of contention among the farmers and the farm unions who fear that this APMC Act is being done away with by the center's legislation. So, therefore, the state government has stepped in and offered to protect.
The APMC Act relates to the APMC mandis, the place where a lot of farmers sell their produce and from where the government procures grains from them. The farmers right now fear that because of the central laws, these established markets will be undermined. This new bill tries to take care of that. Apart from this, there is also the bill which amends the Center's Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020 and aims to restore the status quo ante, meaning that it aims to restore the way things were back in June before the Center passed its ordinances.
The final one is, of course, the Code of Civil Procedure Amendment Bill. In this, the Punjab government has sought to insert a provision for exemption of agriculture land not exceeding 2.5 acres from the Section 60 of the Code of Civil Procedure, which provides for attachment of various properties, movable and immovable. So, therefore, what the government has done so that there should be exemption to small farmers from attachment of the land up to 2.5 acres. This was again one of the key demands of the farm unions to protect the interests of the small farmers because they felt that in case, as per the central legislations, the farmer defaults on making his produce available in time as agreed to with the purchaser, he could have been put in jail or his properties could have been attached. So, therefore, this amendment of the CRPC was done in order to give protection to the small farmers.
Now, although these bills have been passed by the Punjab Vidhan Sabha, Manaman says that they will not be valid till they're given assent to by the governor of the state, VP Singh Badnor, who was once a member of the BJP. And since they seek to amend the central legislature, they will also need the assent of the President of India, Ramnath Kovind, who was also once a BJP member.
Now, these were the questions which were put to the chief minister by the media that what is the efficacy of these bills which have been passed until and unless the governor and the president give their assent to whatever the Punjab Assembly has done. So the chief minister has said that in case the governor or the president do not give their assent to these bills or they raise certain objections, the Punjab government will take legal recourse and they would approach the Supreme Court to put forth their point of view. and that they were already in touch with legal experts and constitutional experts in order to take this path if required.
The BJP, in the meantime, has continued to propagate that the minimum support prices will never go away, and that the new farm laws only give farmers more choice and freedom on where they can sell. But after Punjab passed their own farm bills, two other Congress ruled states, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, are also planning to pass similar such bills. Manoj CG, who writes on Congress for the paper, tells us about it.
After Punjab passed these laws, we spoke to Rajasthan Chief Minister, Mr. Ashok Gehlot. So he told the Indian Express that his cabinet will soon send a proposal to the governor for convening of a session of the assembly. And the Rajasthan government too plan to bring out some sort of a law to counter the farm laws passed by the central government. Now, what exactly the Rajasthan law will say, that we don't know as of now, because Mr. Gehlot told us that he was seeking the legal opinion from the Advocate General and taking inputs from the Agriculture Ministry and Agriculture Marketing Ministries and all. So that is their plan.
Similar action was taken by the Chhattisgarh government when on Tuesday they sent a proposal to the governor seeking her clearance for calling a special session on October 27 and 28 to bring out a new law. Manoj explains that there is also a background to these two states seeking to pass these bills.
So what had happened was that after these farm laws were passed by the central government last month, Congress President Sonia Gandhi, she had asked all the party-ruled states, which are Punjab, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Puducherry, to explore the possibilities of passing laws, to negate the central laws, the provisions which encroach upon the states' jurisdiction. So that is the background from where these Congress-ruled states are now planning to pass laws. Punjab has already done it.
Manoj says that the Congress High Command had even circulated a draft bill to the states. Now, these states, of course, know that for these bills to become laws, they would need the president's assent, which they know is very unlikely.
Now, the Congress does not expect President Ramnath Kovind to, give his assent to clear these legislations. But, it's all politics. It believes by doing so, by passing these bills, they can give a strong political statement nationally and in the state also, because Punjab is one state where we have seen a huge farmer unrest, so farmer agitation. So it's kind of a political statement that, see, we have brought out these bills to circumvent the farm laws brought out by the center. Now the law will become valid only when it gets a presidential assent. So that is the next round of tug of war which is expected between the BJP and the Congress, because even the Congress doesn't expect the president to give his assent.
Dear listeners, sorry for this interruption, but before we move on to the rest of the show, I just wanted your quick attention. One of the big reasons people say they like this show is because it helps them understand the news better. It provides them with the context they need to see the bigger picture. And there is perhaps no other place that does that better than Indian Express's Explained section. We on Three Things refer to the section regularly, and it helps us make this show. If you're a regular reader of Indian Express, you know how useful the Explained section can be, especially when you're looking for in-depth analysis by the right experts. You can log on to indianexpress.com/explained and access the coverage 24/7. Explained by Indian Express, where news that matters is explained by experts who know the subject. Now, back to the show. Next, we talk about Pakistan. Right now, Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, has been facing a lot of opposition in his country. Last week, there were two back-to-back opposition rallies where tens of thousands took part despite the pandemic. The first one took place in Gujranwala, which is the fifth most populous city in the country, and the second one took place in Karachi, which is the largest city in Pakistan. What has happened is that four opposition parties in the country, along with a few smaller ones, have come together and formed an alliance against the Imran Khan government. Their alliance is called the Pakistan Democratic Movement, and together they hope to remove Khan from his position. In this segment, we speak to Nirupama Subramanian about this opposition and the reason it is happening right now.
So the Timing is quite curious because it's coming a little, I would say it's coming a little early in the term, because usually we have seen these movements in Pakistani history. We have seen these movements come up repeatedly closer to the election.
And the next national elections in Pakistan are 2.5 years away.
But I think the economy has done so badly over the last year. And of course, that has been exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic. Inflation is running at 10 plus percent, and they have increased the utility bills. Utility prices have been hiked up, and there is overall economic misery.
According to the World Bank, Pakistan's growth rate has contracted from 1.9% in 2019 to minus 1.5% in 2020. A lot of businesses have shut shop and many have been left unemployed.
That is one of the biggest failures of the Imran Khan government, to set the economy right. And there is a realization that there is a lot of anger among people. His government promised much. They came into power saying, we'll bring in a social welfare society. We will make sure that everybody has enough to eat and wear and, shelter and all that. And, he promised nothing less than heaven. But from the word go, his government has lacked capacity for even the most basic tasks. This has been evident even to his supporters. So there is, over the last 2 years, a lot of anger has accumulated, and it has now come out in the form of this alliance.
Nirupama says that these parties have been waiting and watching and have now come together and are channelizing the public's discontent. Though this isn't the first time that the opposition parties have come together like this in the country. She gives the example of when former Prime Ministers of Pakistan Nawaz Sharif and Benazir Bhutto had come together in 2006 and signed the famous Charter of Democracy to fight against the then President, General Pervez Musharraf.
And there have been many other examples. Every time there is a military dictator. The difference now, I think, is that this is not a military dictator, but a civilian government. And the further difference is that this is a civilian government that says that I am on the same page as the Pakistan army. There are no differences between me and the Pakistan army. So what has happened is that it has channelized both the anger on the street and the anger among particular politicians, especially Pakistan Muslim League, which is headed by Nawaz Sharif. It has channelized the anger of Nawaz Sharif against the army.
Earlier this month, Sharif had come out very strongly against the Pakistan army and singled out the army chief, General Qamar Javed Bajwa. Sharif is actually in exile in London right now, and he made his attacks through a televised speech. In it, he blamed Bajwa for Pakistan's ills and of ousting him. He also blamed the judiciary for colluding in this and the army of becoming a state above a state.
बिजली का बिल बिजली बनकर गरीब पर गिर रहा है। बाजवा साहब, जवाब आपको देना होगा। दवाई ना मिलने से मेरे पाकिस्तान का गरीब मर रहा है। बाजवा साहब, जवाब आपको देना होगा। गरीब की रोटी 10 रुपए की हो गई है। बाजवा साहब, जवाब आपको देना होगा।
And this is unprecedented in the history of Pakistan, that somebody speaks so openly against the army, especially a politician from Punjab, especially somebody of the stature of Nawaz Sharif, who has a huge following. I mean, his party has a huge following still in Punjab.
With all this opposition against him, Nirupama says that Imran Khan is being cornered and that he in a way realizes that he has messed up with the way he has handled things. His reaction to all this, however, has been defensive.
So he has basically lashed out against these protesters to say that they are being led by RNDW, they are playing Prime Minister Narendra Modi's game. He wants to break up Pakistan. These people want to break up Pakistan. He wants to weaken the army. These people want to weaken the army. Look how they're speaking against the army and all that.
Besides this, though, there has been one other response, and that is connected to a criticism that Imran Khan has received. Nirupama says that a big theme that had emerged from the protests was Kashmir and the scrapping of its special status that India did last year. People in Pakistan have accused Khan of not doing anything to protect Kashmir. Now, recently, Pakistan National Security Advisor gave an interview to an Indian media platform,
in which he said, the national media advisor said, that, the Indians came to us for talks. And we said, if you want to talk to us, then first you have to roll back all the decisions you have made over the last year from August 5th, 2019, when the special status of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir was removed. All that has to be reversed, and the Kashmiris have to be in on the talks. And these are our conditions. So, to my mind, it seemed like a gambit to win some brownie points on the ground for Imran Khan. I don't know how much traction it has really had with the people who are protesting, with the people who are complaining, who have lots of grievances against the government. I don't know how much traction this thing on Kashmir gets Imran Khan, these revelations on Kashmir that the NSA has made.
The Indian side, of course, has denied any such claims and has said that they never approached Pakistan for any talks, and this move by Pakistan is only to distract from its domestic issues. Now, it is important again to note that it is not just Imran Khan that is facing opposition, but there have also been unprecedented calls made against the Pakistan army. And Nirupama says that this has the army concerned.
The thing is that, you see, the army, unlike other sort of authoritarian armies in the world, or armies that have Praetorian tendencies, say, for instance, like the Myanmar army or any other country where coups take place and all that. This Pakistan army is peculiar in the sense that it craves public legitimacy. So the minute the public starts questioning the Pakistan army, people within start getting nervous because they want to be seen as the ultimate protectors of the country, and they don't want any chink in that armor.
Nirupama gives the example of what happened with Parvez Musharraf when he was ruling the country between 2001 and 2008. That time, he had been the president and the army chief as well.
Now, as his rule progressed, and of course, if you're in power for 10 years, people are going to have lots of grievances against you. And in his case, they were of a different order of grievances. So you could see that the Pakistan army wanted to get rid of Musharraf already at that time. And they very quickly distanced themselves from Musharraf. And so while the streets played out to go Musharraf go, they made sure that beyond a point, it didn't become go army go. So this is the Pakistan army. So now when people are openly attacking the Pakistan army, they're openly questioning the army's role, and they're calling it state. Nawaz Sharif said this is a state above the state. And such things have never been said before. So what I'm saying is, because Pakistan army has been seen to have propped up Imran Khan, to have selected Imran Khan in the last elections, meaning they'd already fixed the match for him so that he won that election. They are so closely identified with him. So his ineptness will be seen as their ineptness. So they're very worried about it.
Nirupama says that the other thing to note here is that General Bajwa, who's the face of the army, has been very closely identified with Imran Khan. In fact, Khan was the one who gave Bajwa a 3-year extension after his 3-year tenure had ended as the army chief. So with Khan facing opposition, the Pakistan army may want to distance themselves from Bajwa as well. Maybe even look to get someone else, she says.
So Bajwa's fate has become very linked with Imran Khan's fate. So if they drop Imran Khan, if the Pakistan army decides to drop Imran Khan, Bajwa becomes very weak.
The other thing that Nirupama points out is that all these opposition parties that have come together to form an alliance, their politics are very different from each other. Like the guy leading the protests, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, belongs to a hardline Islamist conservative party which has links to the Taliban. But in the alliance, there is also PPP, which is more centrist, PMLN, which is conservative, and the Pakhtunkhwa Milli Awami Party, which is much more progressive. And so the challenge will be to stick together and keep the momentum going till the next elections, which, like mentioned earlier, are still 2.5 years away. Though for now, the next big thing that the people of Pakistan have their eyes on is the rally that is scheduled to take place in Quetta, which is the capital of Balochistan.
So we'll see what kind of crowds gather there. It is also the territory where Maulana Fazlur Rahman, who's the president of this movement, of this alliance, where he has a lot of following. Already you saw in Karachi, they had huge turnout. Karachi is the capital of Singh. So they're trying to give it a pan-Pakistan color. The plan is that will all culminate in a huge long march on Islamabad in January.
In the end, we talk about a twist in the TRP scam case. In a previous episode, we had talked about how the Mumbai police has been investigating a case where they allege that 3 channels, including the Republic TV, have been involved in a scam which involves the manipulation of TRPs or television rating points. TRP in India is calculated through some 40,000 barometers installed in households which are supposed to be anonymous. The Mumbai police, however, has been alleging that these 3 channels paid money to some of these households to watch certain channels. But even as the Mumbai police investigates this matter, the Uttar Pradesh police has now filed a similar FIR where they claim that some news channels are fudging TRPs. Deeptiman Tiwary, who reports on government agencies and matters of corruption, tells us about it.
This FIR has been filed on October 17 by UP police at Hazratganj police station in Lucknow. This FIR, immediately after being filed, was referred by the state government to the CBI. And the CBI on Tuesday registered an FIR as well. The Department of Personnel and Training immediately issued a notification for the takeover of the case, and CBI has registered an FIR and begun investigation. Now, the FIR has basically been filed on a complaint from a private individual named Kamal Sharma, who claims to run a media and advertising company named Golden Rabbit Communications. Basically, in his FIR, he has made these very broad and larger allegations about TRP manipulation by TV channels. And these are basically allegations which have been in public domain for quite some time. So it's, in that sense, a very, very general FIR. And, sections of cheating and criminal breach of trust have been invoked in the FIR. So in many sense, it's an open FIR because it does not mention any accused, neither a person nor an entity, a TV channel, which is manipulating TRPs. Absolutely general allegations. So it makes the FIR open to, use by the agency to investigate just about any TV channel or any person it deems fit or finds any prima facie evidence of manipulating TRPs. So the FIR actually brings every TV channel whose business is dependent upon TRPs under investigation.
The significant thing to note here is that the UP police filing an FIR and the case being transferred to the CBI comes after the lawyer representing Republic TV, Harish Salve, had asked the Bombay High Court to transfer the Mumbai police case to the CBI. Some allege that Salve asked for this so that others also come under the scanner, and it's not just channels like Republic TV being investigated by the Mumbai police that are targeted.
So it's very interesting that the channel's counsel, Harish Salve, makes a plea to the Bombay High Court that the TRP manipulation is a larger menace and it affects a lot of channels. So there should be a wider investigation and this case should be given to CBI. And just as he makes such a plea in Bombay High Court, the UP police registers an FIR and the FIR is promptly transferred to Delhi and CBI takes over and registers an FIR. So on the face of it, it all looks extremely coordinated. However, now what happens in the case will depend upon what kind of investigation CBI conducts.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and as always was edited and mixed by our producer Joshua Thomas. Before we go, here's another reminder to check out Indian Express's Explain section. You can log on to indianexpress.com/explain and find in-depth analysis by the right experts. It has everything you need to know to understand the news better and see the bigger picture. If you like this show, then you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.